Welcome everyone to the House of Shadows and Ink, where we chat with all kinds of creative people. And today our guest is Del Howison. Thanks for being here, Del.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
Oh, awesome. So for those who might not know you or whoever, just tell us a bit about you and what you do.
Well, I'm an entrepreneur for one thing, something that you could probably relate to pretty well. My wife and I, for 30 years, ran the brick and mortar store Dark Delicacies, which was probably
Nice.
the most famous horror emporium in the United States for that whole time, and spawned an entire industry, I think, because when we started, everything that's available, it was books and gifts and that kind of thing. Everything that's available now was not available then. And I think it got people to thinking, and it brought collectors out of the closet because I
Mm,
think that's where a lot of them were hiding. And we started by doing a single table at a comic convention, and then we
nice.
said, "Hey, that was a success," and moved on. Opened a store, ended up having 4 different locations, not at the same time, but every time they would jack the rent up, we'd have to move because it's a
Mm,
retail store. Interesting story on that. One place I was in for 9 years, the parents owned it and they retired and gave it to their son. And I had been paying $3,800 a month, which was correct rent for that area and the size of the store. And when my lease came up, it was for $7,000. So that's the kind of so
yes.
consequently we had to move. So that's the kind of thing that made us
Mm,
jump around, or we would have stayed in one place. But all of the stores were within 5 blocks of each other for that 30 years. And I lived right in the middle, a neighborhood right in the middle. So it worked out pretty good in the long run. But then I went on I started as a journalist and decided I wanted to go into fiction and began what I think is, for fledgling writers, the easiest way to get into fiction, which is short story writing, because
mm,
I think there's usually an opening in an anthology. And down the road, when I ended up editing anthologies and stuff, I always made sure that there were a couple of empty spots to allow me to discover new authors or something from a mid-list
true.
author I might have overlooked and stuff. And I think it's very important that we give writers a chance to get out there and give them a place to play in. There's just not enough of that with the consolidation of all of the publishing companies. Thank goodness for places like Crystal Lake because it opens things up in many, many areas. You've been wonderful with that, and you've had big names and no names and middle names, and I think that's all very, very important. We did at the store, did a signing or two every weekend. We tried to we tried to make it a signing like if we had you there, we tried to put somebody who was not a name and let them kind of piggyback off of yours. So people would come to see you and they'd go, "Oh, we're here and here's another author selling a book. We might as well get that." And it provided a place of discovery. And I think that's important too.
Nice.
Now we retired from the brick and mortar, but we still have Dark Delicacies. We do pop-ups. Just finished doing one with Howard Berger from KNB Effects and um, 20 other FX people who do practical effects. It was a huge signing for a new book that Howard put out called Making Monsters.
Nice.
We announce those on our website when we're having them and that sort of thing, which, if I can say the website, is
Hmm.
darkdel.com, DARKDEL. And if you go on
True.
there, you'll see the announcements of everything coming up. I have a composer signing this weekend. We tried to be as varied as we could in the world of horror, which you are very well steeped in. And we do composers, we do artists, we do writers, we do directors, we do actors, anything we can uh, to make it so that the people can meet the people that create the things that they love.
Well, that sounds exactly what our goal here is at the House of Shadows and Ink. But so you've already like set the bar of what we're trying to meet. I'll definitely go and look into that. Yes, I've been following you on like Facebook probably since I joined like long as that, 15 years ago. And I mean, you guys always had like the best signings, the coolest people there, like signed merch and books and everything.
Some of that
Definitely
comes out of the
feels like I
fact
missed out.
of our,
Mm,
location. I mean, we're in Southern California, we're in the Los Angeles area. Everybody either here or New York, everybody comes through because they have some kind of a deal they're working, you know? "Oh, I wanna
mm,
sell this script," or "I wanna turn my book into a movie," or whatever it is. So, it's a hub, and, like, New York is where they all go trying to get things published. But with the consolidation of many of the publishing houses, I think that places like yours are very important because people need smaller houses that still have an outreach
mm,
instead of just being we're the chosen ones that are represented by Random House or whoever it might be. And also, I
mm.
think that smaller houses lend themselves to more experimental or horror or
Oh, yes.
sci-fi, that kind of thing, and I think that's
Mm.
very important.
We're actually doing our very first epic fantasy book next month. So basically like Lord of the Rings. I mean, and 80-90% of horror fans all love Lord of the Rings. So it just goes to show. So yes, we can experiment, we can try new things, especially when it comes to marketing, like creative marketing. We can be a bit more risky, and there's not so many people to run it by for approval.
Right.
I've got people working for me, but in the end, if I want to do something, I'll listen to the input. But if I believe it's going to work or it's worth the risk, then we do it,
How much do
which is
you feel
awesome.
that your location in South Africa helps or hinders your company?
It used to, well, I used to believe that it hinders. I don't anymore because we kind of stay out of the politics and the problems and all of that stuff that's popped up. Not just like American politics, but even like in between the authors themselves. Whenever there's like, people got cancelled and this and that, we like just sitting off to the side. Most of our stuff is online. We're only now starting to basically broaden our horizon in South Africa itself, getting our books printed here, selling them from the office. So that's going to be expand a bit, but we've always been kind of, it's nice to be out of the way of all this stuff. If something happens online, we can just ignore it basically. Doesn't affect us. But and earlier this year I did go to America for the Horror on Main convention, which was awesome. So in the long run, or eventually, I think I'll be able to go like once a year to big conventions and then come back to South Africa and just be out of the way a bit, which I
Now,
think
do
is
they
good.
have any outlets or conventions there for you guys?
No, the latest thing is the South Africa that we have a Comic Con now. I think for the last 3 years. I should probably try and go next year. I've missed it every time, but that's the newest, and that is the only thing. We don't have like horror sections. I know a lot of bookstores don't, but we have no horror sections. It'll be sci-fi and fantasy, and you'll get a horror book in between here somewhere.
Mhm.
Like I found a few Tim Leben books amongst the sci-fi and thrillers and stuff. But even Stephen King is just under drama, novels, whatever. So that's unfortunate, but I know there's a lot of like dark fiction horror readers here. I just need to find them now and show them that Crystal Lake Publishing is actually in South Africa, because I found a lot of them actually heard of us, but they didn't know we're in South Africa. So I think word will spread once we make our books available here as well.
So, most of your distribution, you have to do everything at least stateside or maybe
Yes.
Europe and whatever, also through third-party distributors.
So 81% of our market is America at the moment. I am running more ads in Canada and UK, stuff like that, because people are,
Australia too?
yes, yes. People are hanging on to their money a bit in America for good reason. So I'm expanding a bit in other countries as well until the ship steers right again in America. Oh,
Yeah, because we have
fingers crossed.
our problems over here, as you know. Yesterday, we had was a off election, meaning it wasn't the big election year, but there were a lot of offices, and it was a complete referendum of the people on rejecting the current government. It's not changing the government, it's changing it in little places like governors of states and mayors
Mm,
of cities and that kind of thing, but it kind of said what was going to happen next year in the midterms. So we will see. Things are changing. You just have to hang in there.
Yeah, it's just shocking to know it's not even been a year yet. It's 3 more years. And I mean, like we're in South Africa and it's affecting the mental health of people here. So I can just imagine having to live there.
And Europe
So
is having its own problems.
I'm really glad. I mean, South Africa is not the best, safest place in the world, but it does have its benefits. That's for sure. The bad stuff we're basically used to, we're prepared for it. Like
Right.
it's not safe, so you take precautions, kind of thing. But
Yeah,
yes,
and we have
so
our own over here, we
no,
have
go
our own
ahead.
perception of what South Africa must look like and be like.
Mm.
What you get in the media from anywhere is kind of a skewed perception.
Mm. See, and now the same thing with America. Like we're only seeing the bad. Like, and I mean,
Right.
there's so much good happening there as well because I see it from like the authors and people I work with at street level. There's so many good things still happening, but of course the news is only going to show you the absolute worst, like the clickbait, the shocking stuff, and then they don't understand what's going on. But yes, I can just imagine, like we talk about, creativity and the things that we read and watch influences us. So imagine a kid growing up in a world where you only see extremism, like people screaming at each other, far left, far right, whatever. They think that's normal. I mean, they don't grow up in a world. For instance, if I can bring up South Africa now, we grew up with, apartheid and all that stuff. But there was a time where people, they know they're different, they know they're not going to get along, but they keep it civil, kind of thing.
Right.
They're like, I respect your space, you respect mine. Life goes on, we'll greet each other, kind of thing. Some people did become friends, some people, like started dating or got married, whatever. That's normal. But in America now, especially, being civil basically stopped. Like, well, lots of countries in the world. So if we don't get along, we can shout at each other as if shouting at anyone has ever convinced them to do something else. Like, or like couples arguing. Like the issue only gets solved after they're done screaming and they start talking.
Right. And you see it online all the
Unfortunately.
time too. People get into these big arguments and everything as if you calling somebody a dummy and whatever is going to change their mind and go, "Oh, yeah, I am a dummy. I'm going to think like you now." It just,
Yeah, it doesn't happen.
and the
Yeah.
other thing besides the perceptions that's tough is it's harder and harder all the time to find truth. And especially with AI, you can
Oh
just
yes.
create lies
S-
that look so real.
So real. I don't even believe my own eyes anymore. I'll be immediately like skeptical, like, I don't think so. So it doesn't, and it's gonna get worse. Like you're not gonna know
Yes.
the difference.
Yes, and what
And unfortunately, to the people high up, whether it's politicians or actors, famous people, the higher the tree, the more wind you're gonna get. So there's gonna be fake videos of them all over the place
right.
doing
That's a good way
horrible
to put it. The
things.
higher in the tree, the more wind you get. That's a
And
good one.
that's
Usually, if I'm wondering about something that I hear or whatever, I'll check 3 to 5 other
mm.
independent news sources, and if they all talk about it the same way, I'll go, "Well, there's probably something there." But if you only find it one place or one online spot or something like that, you can pretty well dismiss it.
And a good thing with I've been doing a lot of YouTube research for like our channel lately, and they are not punishing, but they are basically encouraging real creators and saying like stuff that's like 100% AI, because there's a lot of entertaining AI stuff out there that's making money off
Right.
YouTube and TikTok, whatever, and they don't want to lose the actual people, the real people who are like keeping these channels up. So the algorithm is going to benefit the actual creators a bit more. So there are things happening to make sure the real people stay up there. And that's what we're trying to do here as well, like show the real people, the artists, the authors, the screenwriters. I mean, even the guy holding we talked to a guy the other day who's an author now, but he used to just stand there in the back during like filmmaking and he just makes sure he knows where the actors are. If it's
Right.
time to go, like he knows where they are. He can call them. He keeps the people quiet on set. Like we even talked to that guy. I mean, it's because everyone makes a difference. I used to obsess over all those names on the screen at the end of a movie. which you don't really see anymore these days because it just skips over to the next movie. But I
Right.
always wondered, like, what do all these people do? So many people working on a movie. And now that you're retired, you're going into the movie business.
Yeah, and if you're watching it on streaming or whatever, suddenly the credits go by at 50 miles an hour, just
Oh, yes.
you can't read anything, so that's crazy. I've been doing a lot of since we retired the brick and mortar, I've been doing a lot of extra work and featured extras and acting here and there, along with keeping up my writing. So I'm not a
Mm.
person who can sit on a porch or go fishing or play
Oh,
golf.
yes.
That's not me.
Same. Yes, and you had quite an iconic role that you played.
I have played a lot, but I think you're probably referring to the Renfield ones?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I guess Tim Lucas, who used to do a magazine called Video Watchdog, he did, and this was one of those magazines that they'll go, if you watch this release as opposed to this company's release of the same film, you'll notice 1/4 of a frame is missing. I mean, they were very nerdy about
Mm.
what they were coming up with. And I guess, and I didn't know until he said it, but I am the actor who has played the character of Renfield more times than anybody else, and that's 4 so far that I
Wow.
have appeared as. So that's kind of a neat thing in my back pocket, and it won't even get me a cup of coffee, but it's an interesting fact.
Mm. Well, one of our Patreon patrons actually asked, like, did you bring anything new to the character?
I tried to. What always bothered me about Renfield, starting back with Dwight Fry in the Bela
Mm.
Lugosi Dracula, was he was supposed to be able to do things that Dracula needed done when Dracula was incapacitated, like sleeping during the day or hidden out from the light. But
Too.
they made him be this fly-eating maniac in who gets in jail sometimes and is kind of a lunatic. And I thought, why would he pick some screwball, to so I kept
Mm.
some of that because he did have to be off, and we did keep the bug eating in the films. But beyond that, I tried to make him more intelligent, more able to interact on a regular level to accommodate what needed to be done for Dracula during the daytime. I mean, otherwise, what good is a servant that can't do anything for you?
So I'm thinking now of, have you seen What We Do in the Shadows?
Yes.
Yes, they also had the helper, and that guy was very able. Like, he doesn't look the role, but he was really good. I
Yeah.
can't even call his name now, but no, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah,
So,
why would I hire someone who can't do the job?
yes. And what movie is this, and where can we see it?
There's 4 movies, obviously, out there. Things like, Countess Dracula's Orgy of Blood, and, they're all they're all, on DVDs and Blu-rays, and occasionally they pop up streaming on services like, Tubi and,
Okay,
Hulu and things like that. So yeah, it's fun. I never know when they're going to show up, but it's fun. It's like we
that's
did
cool.
an appearance. There is a show, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's a series that people go to storage units that people have not paid on, and they auction off the storage
Yes,
unit. And then if they
I saw
find,
you.
yeah,
Yes,
I did.
I
They
saw
did
you
the
on that.
Chucky doll. That was fun. So that's still I filmed that probably 10 years ago, 12 years ago,
Oh,
and Storage Wars, that's the name of the
Storage Wars.
series.
That's it.
And it still comes up in reruns and replays, and people go, "Hey, I saw you on TV last night." And it was like, yeah, 10 years ago last night.
Oh no, that was very cool. Yeah, and yes, you are like very knowledgeable when it comes to, especially, I think like even if you need to put a price on something like an artifact, something signed, you'll most likely even like if the person is still around today, know who they are, can check with them. Is this your signature? That kind of stuff. So I'm actually
Yeah,
surprised they didn't use you more.
there's people that are long gone, but it still has the fans and still has the collectors
Mm.
who collect their stuff. I mean, people collect Frankenstein, Boris Karloff, and Draculas, and all of that, and those people are long gone.
Mm. I was actually thinking yesterday how old Frankenstein is. I mean, how long Edgar Allan Poe has been dead and
Yeah.
how relevant these things still are today.
And
It's
there's
amazing.
because they're horror does stand on the shoulders of the ones before them, and those are the people who came first. It's like horror fiction, if you start going through the ages of books and that thing. For America, what is that like? Poe and Lovecraft, and have those people, and now those people you're talking 200 years ago, 50 years ago, and those books are still relevant to what's going on.
Mhm.
It's amazing when if people don't know their history, they should spend time finding out about it because
Mm.
not only will it help them now when they're writing or making films or viewing things to enjoy them, but it's fascinating. That history is fascinating.
Oh, yes.
So I think that's a great thing to do.
I was actually talking to Kevin Lucia. He actually does a Tubi Tuesday show here on our YouTube channel where he like
Uh-huh.
talks about whatever movies, like horror movies pop up. So I'm sure you're in there somewhere. I'll check with him. And we were talking about also doing a kind of autobiography of like authors or famous creators of like yesteryear, whatever, their life story, their work, their influence, but also, for instance, true events, like the history of that. People love that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm a history fan through and through. So if you can combine history with something else that you love, the history of
Right.
haunted houses or whatever, and then the next step would be now you get enough of these like visit or haunted hotel kind of stuff on the internet. But what fascinated me the most was the history of the building, the story of the people who died there, how many times this woman in a dress was seen by whom, that kind of stuff. Not the actual let's go find the ghost.
Right.
So I'd love to do that as well and like just feature all these historic buildings and people and events of history because that's the stuff that motivates and inspires creators of today. I mean, there's
And
so
there's a
many
lot of
things that have
ghost
happened.
hunters. There's ghost hunters who have here in the States who are actually not publicity, let's pretend we're ghost hunter
Mm,
kind of crap, but people who actually have the historic knowledge and have studied
nice.
all of the things. And you should have them on this show
Mm,
to talk to them. People like Lisa
um,
Morton, who has written the definitive
okay.
Halloween book and
Yes.
stuff like that.
We recommended her book just last month, like the top 5 or top 10 Halloween books to read. So, and she saw that thankfully. So I just need to check in with her because it's so important to highlight these things. And I mean,
Yep.
especially for every year, there's going to be new people who want to take on writing and especially horror writing. And they're
Right.
going to go and look for all of these things, hopefully, and we need to show them the way, kind of thing. Whatever wasn't there when I started out, I want to make sure is available to people. And that includes, like free advice, like right here on YouTube. I don't have to go and immediately and buy a book or a workshop or something. Just
Right, we
see where
used to
you fit
have in
in.
Dark Delicacies, once a month, we had a writer's coffee house that was kind of an extension from the one Jonathan Mayberry is doing down in San Diego at the bookstore down there, and it was free, and it would usually have about 20 people, and people made connections, and people learned things,
Nice.
and that's what it's all about. It's all helping all of us along as opposed to
Mm.
I'm this, and then you guys are down there, kinda. And they shouldn't have to pay for everything. You can
Mm.
discover for free.
That's That's actually one of the issues I have at the moment with things here in South Africa among artists. It's like everyone's competing for that international stage kind of thing, but there's so much you can learn from each other, work together. Just the people you hang out, you suck in that kind of like creative energy and it just raises you to the next level. Why not do that? Hopefully, with our office like being more available to people and they come and get books, people are going to start asking questions about writing and we can do something similar for free because it's the connections, like you said. I mean, that's a game changer. Just the
Yeah.
people you meet in your life and get to invite for stuff and then they invite you. It's
I
a
also
win-win
belong
for
to
everyone.
an entertainment group that's been around for 35, 40 years. I haven't been with it that long, but and it's called The Table. That's what they call the group. and it
Nice.
meets once a week at a specific location, but it also has this, like a laptop there, and people come in and are talking on the laptop during the meeting of what's going on. It's not really something you check in and check out, not really a meeting, it's more like a community, and it's a
Mm,
community of entertainment people from editors to sound people to actors to directors, whatever, and they're just there. They go around the table and everybody says what they've been up to. And at the end of each person's thing, they ask the question, so what do you need? And then we try to match it
nice.
up with somebody to help them with that. It's not a money thing, it's a
Mm,
cooperation thing to move all of us together. And that's what the writers need. If there is one thing that is most important in anybody's career at any level, it's communication. It's sitting down and talking to other like-minded people in the
mm.
business, and they go, "Hey, well, I know about this," and you go, "I've never heard of that, and now I know about this." And it's very important to have that kind of social connection. We're not living in a bubble, you know?
And I think that's one of the reasons I started this YouTube channel is because it did start kind of like feel to me like a bubble over here away from all these creative people. But I had to like overcome a bunch of, fears and on camera and all that kind of stuff over time. And eventually just took the plunge, got the, the microphones and the lights and the cameras and all that stuff. And eventually you get used to it, like exposure therapy kind of thing. And I do live stuff now on YouTube and live interviews where years ago I only did email interviews. So thank goodness for that. And
And exposure
it's the
begets exposure.
yes. And I mean I'm so happy for just being able to sit down and chat with you because when would we get a chance to do this like face to face other than this way? I mean the time
And we've
difference.
spoken quite a bit, actually, for
Mm,
being on different continents. We do pretty good, but, you know, that's another thing. All of this, people can't take something like AI and say it's bad or it's
mm.
good. It's a tool. And AI can work for you or AI can work against you. And that's the same with the computer and the ink pen and the microphone,
All
anything else. They're
yes.
tools.
Every major invention ever has been met with heavy resistance. And
What's that?
actually, every major invention ever has been met with resistance. I mean, even the wheel, even well, airplanes, cars, the train. People said, no, the train can't replace the horse, all that kind of stuff. Internet, there was a bunch of stuff I read. I read a book the other day about this. You get the lean in people and the lean out people, but leaning in and finding out what this thing is, like AI, does not mean you are for AI, but at least study it, know what it can do, know
How
how
you
you
can
need
make
to
it work for
adapt your
you.
business. Yes. And because the people who didn't, who like turned their back on like the internet, those businesses are gone. I mean, even Dark Delicacies, you guys, you were on the internet. I mean,
Yes, and
and
look
for
at
good
that.
reason.
How much money could we have paid for paid advertising, like a magazine ad and radio ad,
Mm,
or this is free? When we had the store, you could just start putting things out there and you create a community. They all start talking to each other. I think in
yep.
that thing you were reading, it probably pointed out the fact that every time there's a new invention, first off, it's not invented out of whole cloth. It's usually go, oh, look at that thing he uses, but I can make it better or I
Mm,
can make it different. And you're going to lose some jobs, you're going to gain some jobs because people need to run whatever the new thing is. So, yes, all
mm,
of the horse and buggy makers hated automobiles when it came along because now people don't need the buggies or the carriages or anything. Those people went out of business, but how many people started in the auto industry? So it's just a shifting in a lot of cases.
yes.
And you're right about businesses going out of business because they didn't you can't latch on to everything new, but you need to be aware and latch on to the
Mm,
things that would help your business. One of like Barnes and Noble or Borders or some of them started with their Kindles too late,
yes.
like Amazon put it out and then suddenly Borders decided, which was a big chain here, decided to get their own out there, but they were like 4 years too late. You can't sit back and wait to see everything that's going to work. Just decide if it's for you. But new things are always bemoaned. And at
Mm.
the same time, they create opportunities. So,
We have to. I mean, a big part of my job is just staying up to date with everything. What's happening? How are readers, like, how are their habits changing? That kind of stuff. Where are they going? What's taking up most of their time? Where do they buy? All that stuff. You
Right.
have to, like, you can't just stand still. I mean, we started just publishing books, and we've grown so much because we keep adapting, we keep learning, we keep testing new things. And I'm so thankful for that, that we're able to do all of these things. Who knows
Some
what's
things
next, like
work and
in
some
10 years?
things don't. You have to weed it out yourself.
Most of what we've tried have been successful, but there were a few duds along the way, or the time
Sure.
just wasn't all right. And then we tried again 5 years later with like new technology or something that's come along. Maybe we were just ahead of our time. But, like, let's hope for that. And then we
And you
try
have
it
more
again.
knowledge at that point about
Yes,
the thing.
so true. So, and all of this stuff that you're talking about, like the knowledge and the experience and everything you've done so far in your life. I mean, that when I read your book, that perfectly encapsulates like just your whole life. So when you say like your collection of short stories, What Fresh Hell Is This, is like your life's work, I do kind of like get your personality in that book.
Right.
You want to talk about your book a bit?
Well, that's What Fresh Hell Is This is the name of the book, published by this fun little company called Crystal Lake Publications. This will be backwards on mine. I don't know if it's backwards on
No,
your end or what.
it's we can see it perfectly. I have my copy here. There
Yeah.
it is
And
as
it's
well.
another one is already starting, but I write novels and then I also write short stories, as I referred to earlier, as a great entrance way into
Mm,
getting writing out there. And then you can't lose it entirely, because writing a short story is kind of a whole different animal than a novel. It's
mm.
I'm a lover of the short, sharp shock, as we say. Get 10 pages and boom, now you have something to think about, but it's a complete story encapsulated in 10 pages or whatever it is. These were all stories, except for a couple that I put in just for the book for people who had read my stuff, stories that I had been paid for to put in anthologies, magazines, online things that I was hired to write. Sometimes you're hired to write to a subject. Sometimes you're hired to write a specific thing. I need a story about blah blah. And then sometimes you just write a story. Every author has what they call drawer stories, that they keep
Mm.
them in the drawer of their desk. And sometimes they're just obscure. Well, I'll just keep that right here in my drawer until I see a horror anthology about llamas who wear hats. I mean, it's just a thing that came to your mind. You wrote this obscure story, you put it away, and down the road, you can use that in something. It always comes up. When I put together
Mm.
the first Dark Delicacies anthology, I asked Ray Bradbury if he would contribute a story. They were all original stories in those anthologies.
Mm.
And he got back to me the next day and said, I can do that, but you're going to have to give me time to update it. He had a drawer story that he took out, and I believe, he had to update things like, oh, it's a dial phone. I have to
Mm.
change that to
True.
a push button phone at that time, or whatever it is. And he did, and then about a week later, he sent it to me, and I believe that story in Dark Delicacies 1 is Ray Bradbury's only zombie story. I cannot recall
Wow.
another zombie story by Ray. But it would have sat in that drawer until some editor or publisher like yourself, myself, came along and said, "Hey, would you be interested in contributing to this anthology? And this is the framework." And
Mm.
and we got an original Bradbury. So, you know,
Wow.
don't only write. Here's a suggestion for those people watching. Don't only write if you have something to write to. If you have an idea, if you want to work on something, just write. You only become a better writer by writing. It's that simple.
Mm.
Writing and reading. That's the two things. And in fact, I'm playing with a short story for you in an upcoming anthology next year
Okay.
that we're doing. So who knows? It's a very interesting book. So it was all stuff that was done, and they were done at different times for different reasons, for different types of venues. And some people have called it the most disturbing anthology of the past couple years. I mean, there's some disturbing stuff in there, but there's also some humor in there.
Mm.
I hope one side or the other is the part of my personality you said you saw in the book, but I
The
don't know.
dark humor, dark twisted humor, which is exactly what I've got.
And you guys
Mm.
publish a lot of dark, twisted stuff.
Mm.
Now you're making a big venture into fantasy, and, that's a whole monster in itself.
Mhm.
This epic one that you're playing with right now, is that going to be multi-volume?
Yes, the first book is 240,000 words,
Holy moly,
and it is basically gonna be the first of a long running series. So,
that's a lot of words, you
that's
know?
a lot of that's a lot. Yes, and the author is a huge collector of Lord of the Rings memorabilia and stuff. So he's actually known in those circles as this collector who's now writing his own series. And so everyone wants to pick up his work and see how it is. And there's, like hand-drawn maps and all kind of stuff like fantasy readers just obsess about because he is a fantasy fan or epic
Mhm.
fantasy. And I mean, I'm a sucker for Lord of the Rings kind of stuff. There's my copy is right there behind me.
Is he
So
playing in that world or creating his own world?
creating his own. So everything is original, from the cultures to the politics, everything, religions, the whole works. So I think it's the best way possible to get into epic fantasy. I just hope we can do it proud kind of thing and get it the attention that it deserves. So fingers crossed.
You
Keep trying.
decided to get into it basically because you're a fan of epic fantasy?
Well, I've always been a fan, and when I started Crystal Lake Publishing, I used the name Crystal Lake specific for the reason of there's always something for the horror fan. They're gonna recognize the name. But if
Right,
we do go branch into other genres, Crystal Lake Publishing is still it's not like blood and guts and gore publishing or like
right.
gore fest or whatever. We can do other genres and subgenres and stuff. And one of our very trusted editors actually reached out to us and said she edited a epic fantasy novel for a guy, and it just blew her away. We definitely need to take a look at this and consider it. And so I already went into reading that book with like an open mind, but also like excitement because I trusted her judgment, and it just blew me away. And whenever I read something, I don't care what genre it is. If a story can basically just swipe my feet from under me, I want that. I've never really cared about it has to be this genre or that genre or
Right.
these types of characters, whatever. For me, it's the story, and I'll
I
put
agree, it's about the
everything I can
character.
behind it. Mm.
You know, it's so important to me when you read a book or when you read a story or whatever, you know it works when you realize you've been reading and the rest of the world out here doesn't
Yep.
exist. You know, you're so engrossed. It's like one of
Mm.
my personal campaigns in life is to show people who aren't really familiar, because you say the word horror and they get a particular
Oh
picture in their
yes.
mind. They
Mm.
think it's all
They always go
slasher.
to they always go to the extreme first.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I used to have a piece of paper that was like a family tree. You know how they have those things? It's like grandpa's up here, and then
Mm.
here's the kids, and here except it was for horror. So you had them, horror up here, and then you had psychological horror and slasher horror and humorous horror. And I have a huge campaign I've always worked on to show people that horror is very diverse and very widespread. And personally, myself, as you know from reading the short story, I don't use a lot of supernatural in my horror. My horror is more the people and the
Mm.
psychological and the interactions of people because that's what fascinates me. People and the horrible things we do to each other and all of that kind of thing. Like we talked earlier, we're kind of living that. And that matters to me more than going, well, I'll just put a monster here and then that'll be horror, or I'll put a mad killer here with an axe and that'll be horror. I'm so much more involved with that. And now with you stepping into epic fantasy, that is a huge field that you can go on and on into. Does that now lead to science fiction?
We did start doing a few sci-fi horror books. So horror in space kind of thing. I think we've done 2 books so far. So I'm definitely open to it. I'm not a fan of, I think it's called hard sci-fi, because I don't even understand half the terms that I read there. There's like the spaceship controls, and that's a bit too
Yeah.
much. But there's definitely space for sci-fi horror or just plain horror in space. I'm also a fan of, like there was a series. It's basically adventures into space.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be horror, but I mean, it's gonna have horror because there is the unknown. There's gonna be life on other planets. There's gonna be antagonists. So there is stuff to fear. But it can be like a family traveling to a new destination, a new world kind of thing, exploration, those kinds of
Right.
things. That definitely fascinates me. It's not going to be the so First Contact, I know that's a good one, but like Space Fleet Marines fighting, there's a lot of places.
Military
They do a,
sci-fi, that
yes,
kind
they
of
do
thing.
a proper job of that. So I'm not even going to put my
Right.
foot in there.
That's why I've
They
always
win.
kind of stayed away from sci-fi as a reader because it always felt kind of cold to me. But that's
Mm,
because it would be either the military sci-fi or the Isaac Asimov robot. Everything was
yes, yes.
machine and this and that. Whereas the sci-fi I found I enjoyed were things that really were people oriented, like
Mm,
in writing maybe Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein, which
nice.
really concentrated on the characters, or in movies, Enemy Mine, the 2 guys on the planet
That's one
together.
of my favorite movies
Yeah,
ever.
but it's about
Yes.
people as opposed about
Mm.
the machinery and that kind of thing.
So yeah, so any kind of sci-fi story where you take a normal family, normal people, and you put them in that extreme sci-fi surrounding, like living on Mars or whatever.
Right,
And that's actually what I read when I was young. Like our library didn't have horror, of course. We didn't have Goosebumps either. So it was young adult, middle grade sci-fi of like kids lost in space. Oh, Lost in Space. That's the name of the one series that I quite enjoy because it's about the family. It focuses
right.
heavily on the family in space. And even now with the kids' books, we have Alien in the Backyard Barbecue. We have these like space adventure type books because that catches the imagination of kids and traveling
Right.
to distant places and meeting alien creatures and all that stuff. So I'm definitely going back to the things that got me interested in reading, got my
And that's the
imagination
beauty of
going.
books, you can travel
Mm.
without going anywhere.
Oh, it's wonderful. Now, our kids channel, that's the message we're trying to teach is the puppets
Mhm.
can go into the books. So as if like when you read a book, you're actually going into it. But they can also take characters out of the book and bring them to this world. So like a friend when you need it, something that you learn from the book you can apply in real life. So that's like the message we're trying to get across with the puppet show. So fingers
Right.
crossed on that one. But it's working quite well.
And the more isolated your location, maybe the more valuable books are. It's because,
Mm,
you get to relate to other people that maybe are like you if you were there, wherever that is. So, well,
true.
it's great to hear the branching out. I think that's a really good thing with it. It's a big jump. I know for you as a publishing company, it's probably a big risk, because it is huge. It's at least a
Mm,
risk of time, and I don't know if then you'll
yes.
just deal with it as more print on demand-ish as opposed to stacking up a bunch of copies of the book because your distribution is not with you, it's other places.
Oh, thankfully, I'm always, I lead with my art kind of thing and my passion, but the business side of my brain is always on, always there thinking. I try and combine creative problem solving with business, which has worked quite well for me. And I've learned the pitfalls of publishing. Every time a publisher closes down, I find out exactly what happened. Most of the time, it's lack of communication or basically partners, and then the one guy steals money, that kind of stuff. But a big thing that also happens is taking unnecessary risks and putting all your hope on like one book. So a very expensive
Right.
anthology, you get all these award-winning authors, and then it sells almost nothing. And that happens a lot, a lot.
Yeah.
So even with like expanding, I believe and feel I've got it under control. So I normally start a new venture to tons and tons of research and like market research and like implement it and be in charge myself. And then I train someone to do it with me for a few months, and then I leave them in charge, kind of thing. So our company keeps getting new people on board, and then I'm like, okay, I've got time now. Let's do something else. And then I'm off to the next thing. And in a few months or a year, I'm going to probably put someone in charge of like the whole YouTube thing. I'll still be involved. I'll
Right.
still do all kinds of stuff that I'm doing now, but eventually I'll see what's next. And the puppetry was actually in the place of animation, which is too expensive, but I'm still hoping eventually we can take our IPs and turn them into, from cell phone apps and cell phone games for the kids to PlayStation games, whatever, design our own
Sure.
stuff, animation, like a online studio kind of thing. Who
License
knows?
out some of this stuff?
Yes. So we've got agents representing rights like for to sell to movies and stuff like that.
Right.
But I'd also like to get some of our authors involved in some of those projects, like expand their horizons. And like, just because you're an author and you write a novel doesn't mean that's all. You can learn to screenwrite or write a comic book script or a game version of it. Work for a
Sure.
gaming studio to write scripts on demand kind of stuff. I mean, because a lot of authors, they've got the skill, they just don't know where to apply it. So all they do is they write a novel. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
much more you can do.
Writing is writing, but that doesn't mean
Mm.
you're stuck on the format of the
Yes.
writing. I don't know if you knew that we put out a comic book. I partnered with Steve Niles,
Oh, yes.
who did 30 Days of Night
Mm.
and lots of other things, and we got with Comic Studios IDW, which were down in San Diego, and we
Right.
decided to start a line of Dark Delicacies comics based on the anthology series that we had going. And
Cool.
Steve would write an introduction to the comic, kind of like he was our creepy ghoul guy, and we would have 2 stories because comic books, I think, are like, don't quote me, but I think they're like 25 pages long, a regular comic book, not a
Mm.
graphic novel. And we would have 2 short stories from the authors who have been in the anthologies in each comic book. And we put out the first one. It was a big learning curve for me as far as what it takes to create a comic book. The
Mm.
day I discovered that the guy that drew the pictures in the frames is incapable of coloring them. I'm
Yes.
like, no, but that doesn't make any sense to me. But yeah, so it was a
Mm.
big learning curve. And then we put it out. IDW, they were in charge of printing it, putting the comic serif script in the word bubbles,
Mm.
and, they were also in charge of, at that time, putting the ads in the Diamond catalog of each month of
True.
the new things coming up, which was a big help on all of that. Now Diamond doesn't even really exist anymore.
Mhm.
My son owns a big comic shop, and, he's now having to do it from 2 or 3 different places to pull in the
True.
but so we did it, and the first issue came out, and it sold 3,000 copies of the comic, which is not bad. I mean, now it would be really good, but in those days, they wanted 10,000 copies of the
Mm.
15,000. Now they'd take 3,000 and go, "That's a nice start." So IDW said, "Oh, no, it didn't move enough," and it stopped after 1 issue.
That's
It was pretty good. Yeah, we had original cover art and different people doing it. I would write the afterword and Steve would write the foreword, and we would work together on putting these things together. But I enjoyed the comic book world. I think if I did it now, it would probably want to do what? More as a graphic novel instead of individual
Mm.
issues. Because in those days it would be like individual issues, and then when you had 5 or 10 of them, it was all put together in a graphic novel.
True.
But I don't know how I have been out of that business for a while. What about, audiobooks? Now, where are you guys
Yes.
at with audiobooks?
We have several narrators who work on like a royalty share basis, and they can do anything from American, UK, Australian, Scottish accents, all that kind of stuff. But the benefit is, of course, that it's not like a $10,000 investment before,
Right.
and We only pitch them the books that, well, they only accept the books. They get to choose and they can see how well a book's doing. So it's either going to happen a few months to a year after a book release and the book does really well, or if they're like, oh, I love this author, or this author has a great track record, I've already done some of their work, or the author comes with a narrator along and say, like,
Right.
this guy does all my books. Let's work out a deal kind of
Yeah,
thing.
you like to
So
latch
that's
up with a
perfect.
particular reader.
And we're actually working on our first audio drama now, which, as like, like the old radio shows, is going to have sound effects
Right.
and all that kind of stuff for a Dracula story, which will hopefully also become a long running series. So fingers crossed on that. I'm actually working on the contract now, so I can't like say anything more than that. But I think that's going to be, especially now with like the YouTube stuff, it's going to be, I don't want to say the future, but it's definitely something people are going to enjoy online.
Right.
And when a
Now,
lot of people listen to
do you
audiobooks.
audiobooks sell like on Amazon and
Yes.
bookshop.org and Ingram and all of that kind of stuff?
At the
So would you
moment, we prefer staying exclusive to Amazon. You do get more royalties. It's like with the Kindle Unlimited stuff. There are benefits to being wide, but Amazon does the best by far. You're just going to
right.
get so much more sales there and a higher royalty percentage. I believe it's a 7-year exclusivity contract, and then we'll go.
Yeah. I know my novel, The Survival of Margaret Thomas, they got picked up for an audiobook and it sold really well. It was a female driven Western and I had a female author, reader who was just out of sight, just was great. And if people ever watch like Turner Classic Movies on their
Mm.
streaming stuff on TV, they like feature somebody every month. They'll go like, March is Cary Grant month or whatever it is. And if it's a woman saying that, it's my reader.
Oh,
She's the
nice.
one that does that. So
Wow.
that was good. I went back to the same people with this, and there's a stigma about doing a short story collection as opposed to a single story like a novel.
Mm.
And I thought, no, 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 I thought that could be interesting because you could have both a guy and a girl, depending on the direction of the story, who would read which story.
Mm.
But I talked to 3 or 4 houses, and yeah, there was something about it being a short story collection as opposed to being a novel that
Mm.
made it a really hard sell as an audio.
Anthologies and collections don't do as well as
They
audiobooks.
don't do as well in the marketplace
Mm.
as a book either, usually.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There was one thing I was thinking of now with audiobooks. Well, a lot of people enjoy, well, yes, Netflix are years now taking on podcasts, but like the visual side of it. So a lot of podcasts record video as well, and then the sound gets put on Spotify, but they're
Right.
moving to Netflix now as well. So pretty soon you're going to have these, because podcasts are very, very popular. It's going to be amongst the movies and stuff. So audio, sound, like combination of the stuff, dramatic readings, all these things, I think is going to become more popular down the line as well. So for an author, and we did
So
a
they would
workshop
what, like
this year.
edit things in, like if it was a true crime podcast, let's say, they might
Mm,
edit into that photos of a crime scene or something. It almost what becomes a television show as opposed
yes.
to a podcast.
Well, we also have a podcast, Shadows Inc. podcast, but the video version we upload like a few weeks later on our YouTube channel. And it's just
Hmm.
like two authors chatting. So there's always the video aspect of as well. Normally they
Right.
put that on as like bonus content to Patreon followers or a newsletter or something. Now, because people also want to see, but I still believe there's a lot of value in just the sound. It's like reading a book. They don't give you everything. You can use your own imagination as well. But I think it's going after like, the true crime type shows where they want to show you a crime, even if it's a reenactment. But
Right.
then it also gives more jobs to, like actors and
Well,
editors,
those
unless they're
television
going
channels are
AI.
like crazy popular. So
Mm,
you've got like the ID channel and MSNBC and all these different ones that
very
are,
popular.
just 24 hours a day. My wife watches them a lot. And so now I sleep with one eye open. So, you know,
True.
you never know.
Oh,
But
that's
I would
wonderful.
think that my dream had always been to do a magazine type show, like podcast magazine type show. So it would be like 1 or 2 desk commentator type people like say the two of us sitting here, and then we had people who had been out in the field, like say they went to the comic convention in
Mm,
Africa there. And you could take their footage and cut it into 3 5-minute segments or something, and in each one of the shows, you could play one of those segments. Maybe they interviewed somebody, maybe whatever it is, and you
mm,
could do that with a bunch of different things and tie it together with this desk here and go to them,
true.
and maybe end up with, like, a half-hour magazine style podcast. 'Cause there's not
Mm,
really one of those out there right now. We had tossed that around, Bob Burns and I had tossed that around years and years ago because on the Sci-Fi Channel, they had, Bob's Basement, which was where he would go downstairs. He's a huge collector of props and stuff, and go, "Today we're gonna look at the Queen Alien," or at the Time Machine from the
oh,
Orson Welles
nice.
movie about the time machine. And we thought, wouldn't that be neat if that was just a segment of a magazine type show? And it actually came up because in those days, here we go again, in those days, they would have movies scheduled that you watch. Here is
Mm,
the movie, it's on at 8 o'clock on HBO, and you watch it. Well, sometimes it's not exactly 2 hours or an hour and a half, and they would have 5 minutes, 10 minutes at the end. Part of it would be pushing their own channel, like, here's what's coming next. But we could always take clips from the magazine show and put them in there. Here's a 5-minute clip to help fill time.
mhm.
That was where we were toying, and then life happened.
Mm. Well, that's a cool idea. Maybe down the line, once I get more, like experience on camera and become more comfortable and stuff, I can do something like that here on the channel. And we can every week, we already have like a news thing every Friday, the Shadow Report, where I basically do a news reading of like all the events around the world in the comics and the
Right.
movies and the books. And I have like a co-star person, and we talk about things and we show video clips and do that for like half an hour. But I
And we
mean,
could
we're reliant
easily
on
have
people
yeah.
sending us stuff.
Exactly. And we could easily have people at the conventions here, or
Mm,
maybe I have a camera guy go out and visit, a horror painting exhibit that's going on over here,
nice.
or whatever it is, and send the copy, and then it just gets cut in the way you want it to work.
I know for like this coming weekend, it's AuthorCon and there's a Comic Con somewhere as well. So just like because a lot of people miss out on it. We just want to see some photos. We want to see who's there. We want to like get the vibe and the feel of
Oh,
just
look,
for a
there's
few
Kane
minutes feel like
Hodder.
we're
They do
there.
an interview with Kane
Yes.
Hodder from a horror con, you
Mm.
know. So
The one author I talked to this weekend said the guys from Supernatural are going to be at the convention, and some of the guys from The Boys are also going to be there. And everyone's like, oh, man, I wish I could be there. But at least then you get like that sense of,
right. And I
in a
think
way, you can share it.
there's something going on almost every weekend.
Oh, yes.
And on the weekends when there isn't, if you have, if they've shot 15 minutes worth of footage, that can be cut up and put into shows that are running a little light on their content.
Mm.
There's so many things like that where you can use things with people and put it in between. If you had like 3 or 4 segments in a half-hour show, along with like your thing of here's what's coming up this week going on, and last week they had this and we have a clip from the field on it or whatever, it could be
Well,
interesting.
maybe once the channel is monetized, then we can start, paying people for contributions and stuff. That's definitely, well, for those who are watching this now, like if you like this idea, comment below, let us know, like throw a few
Yeah.
ideas our way. Let's see where it
Yeah,
goes.
if you think it's dumb, say, "I think it's dumb." If you think it could work, let us know.
No, that is cool. So, Del, what's next? Just acting, more stories, a
Acting,
screenplay?
um, a film that I was an extra in, it's really funny that I played a Puritan from the Salem witch hunts.
I saw a photo of that.
They put out a photo of myself and another Puritan taking a witch which was kind of
That's the
funny.
one.
Yeah, I said that was the beginning of ICE, evidently, because there they were going to houses and
Mm.
arresting, But yeah, that's just a little bit, and I have a a real brief part in a horror film called Big Baby that is put out by Spider One, directed it, and Chrissy Fox from Terrifier 3 and Little Bites and things. She's one of the leads in it, and she's a producer also produced by Cher, and that
Mm,
was kind of interesting.
mm.
So, and in writing, I've almost finished. I'm about 106,000 words into the first draft of my new novel, and I have another novel I'll refer to as a drawer novel that's 110,000 words in that I'm just about ready. When I finish
Whoa.
this one, rough draft, and put it away, I'll go back to that one and start doing my
Mm.
cleanup. So there's two novels sitting there. I owe somebody a short story over here on this side of the screen. And yeah, things are coming up, and then as ideas come, I just do it. You know, the interesting thing since
Awesome.
I got back into acting, because it was really hard to do acting when you're running a store.
Mm.
So you're only tied up for, 10 hours a day at your own store. So it makes it tough. But they do things differently. Used to go in and you would do an audition, and now they're all called self tapes. You do the audition at home against a blank wall, and
True.
then you send them the clip. Technology, man, it's it's changing things. So yeah, keep doing that. Writing, acting, enjoying retirement to a degree. You know,
Mm.
doing whatever I want now instead of I have to be there in the morning, unlock a door, and close it up at night,
Mm.
and that's your life. It was
And
wonderful and I loved it, but I'm ready
yes.
to move on to other things.
And as exciting as it was, like these events, any type of event organizer, that's a stressful job. I mean, that's everything comes
Right.
down on you. Everything has to be right, in place, on time, and safe for everyone. So,
It's
you know,
like
I've
you're the puppet master, you control the strings and you have to make sure it works. Also in the background, Sue and I are working with a good friend who is a cinematographer, so he's going to be cinematographer producer along with the two of us as producers on putting together a documentary about Dark Delicacies, which
nice.
has clips from over the years. I just got him a copy of I was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Horror Writers Association this year. I did an hour-long interview with Lisa Morton, so he's got that speech, and he's filmed some new stuff while we still had the store to film in. A lot of the celebrities who have come and gone and that kind of thing. So that's a work in progress that may take 10 days or 10 years. I have no idea.
Mm,
We're all doing it in our free time when we're not doing everything else in life. So that's just another log in the fire for us right now.
nice. Well, I'd love to watch that. Final two questions.
Sure.
What is the best memory you have of like someone in the store, an event, a signing, just that blew your mind kind of event or visitor?
One of the interesting things was when I had my very first celebrity agree to come in and sign at the store.
Mm.
That that's
Always the
what
first one.
it's always the first one, and that was Sarah Karloff, Boris's daughter.
Nice.
And she came in and signed photos and sold them, and talked to people and all of this. And we were nobody from nowhere at that point. It was so touching that somebody would spend their time. But that's the thing that then the next one goes, oh yeah, Sarah signed over there. Sure, let's set a date. We'll come by
Mm,
and then it snowballs from that point.
true.
I know as far as my wife, her favorite one was Ernest Borgnine when he was signing his autobiography. And he came in, and she just thought he was the greatest gentleman who ever showed up. He was so gracious with his fans. We
Nice.
picked him up from his home and took him back after the signing, and he said, "Hey, Dell, you want to see the place? Come on in." Gave me a tour of his house. I mean, it was like crazy. But the sad thing, but also the great thing, was the opportunity to be with people who are no longer with us.
Hmm.
People like Rowdy Roddy Piper came in and did a signing and
Nice.
chewed gum and kicked ass, from They Live. A lot of people so diverse. The one who did the hit song Monster Mash, Bobby Boris
Oh,
Pickett.
cool.
He signed for us. He's no longer with us. He had a wall of photographs in the back of the store of people who had signed at that time who had passed away while we were still in
Mm,
business. Charles Durning and and Wes Craven and just,
Sure.
you know, all kinds of people. So
Legends.
it was the vast variety and number of people that signed that still blows me away to this day.
No, I can just imagine. And then the best advice from like a guest that you had, someone you interviewed, something that's always stuck with you.
Boy,
Mm.
I've got nothing but great advice. One word for people who are authors or filmmakers is persistence. When you quit, the project quits, and there's no way it's coming back. So, no matter what you're doing, I'm sure you've had plenty of opportunity to say, to hell with this. I'm not doing it anymore. This publishing thing is driving me crazy. And yet at the same time, there's that love deep down inside that goes, I got to
Mm.
finish it off.
Cons-
Persistence.
and persistence leads to consistency. Consistency is key to anything creative. Like, I mean,
That's
anything you
true.
do, just
They
every
way other
day.
people know you're for real. You could be a one-hit
Mm.
wonder and do one project, and they'll go, "Wasn't that nice?" But you really don't get anywhere until you've put the string of that together, and that takes persistence and consistency.
Well, even from like the research I've done with, social media and YouTube and all that stuff, the algorithms also reward consistency. They want to
Right,
know that you're in this for the long haul. And I mean, even as a publisher, if I look at an author's submission, if I can see like, man, they've put in the work, they know about certain things, they've already established like a brand and a baseline of support, all that stuff. They're not just writing a book and hoping for the best kind of thing. Like
right.
they are consistent. They keep writing a book every year kind of thing. This is someone I can walk a long road with, like build a career of type thing. And that's what
Yes,
we're looking for.
absolutely,
Del,
and it creates sales too. If I write a
mm,
book like Margaret Thomas, then you write this one, and people discover the other book from this one, and
mm,
that is part of the consistency.
yep. You know, it does happen for some authors, like, a one hit kind of thing, just like music. But I
Yeah.
mean, I'd rather take a career over just one hit. And eventually, all of those things together is going to turn into something.
It
It
is,
just
and
takes
you and I
time.
don't really think about it a lot, owning businesses, but that's what we built. We built
Mm,
careers out of
yep.
out of just putting ourselves out there and working with something we love. I think as long as you're working in a field you love, it's not really work. It's hard and there's a lot of stuff to do, but there's also a level of enjoyment that's every day getting up and you're not making a hammer at some factory or something.
And every day has the opportunity of something magical happening. Like
Yes.
someone
And it
reaching out
often
to
does.
you. Yes. And it kind of gives you that high of and like expectation of like, man, when's the next time something awesome is going to happen? Because it's going to happen. So every day I try and think of maybe today is going to like blow my mind kind of thing. I had a day like that yesterday and that was amazing. Well, and like just this chat. I mean, Dell, this has been awesome. I remember, and when I thought, man, I have to invite you to come and chat, I remember we just did a normal chat like a year ago.
Mhm.
And I mean, that was so much fun. So hopefully in a few years, I'll also be like that easy to just chat with and have a nice conversation with.
Hey, it's easy to chat. The 2 of us, are talking on a fairly common level with stuff we have in common, and I think that helps it. And any of you watching it, think about our earlier ideas, send us comments. We do love to hear from you people. It
Definitely.
helps us
Everything we do is to create something for them, like for the fans to, I don't want to say consume, but to entertain, to whatever they need it for. In like where you are in your life, we
because what
create
we're
the
doing
things you're gonna
is
need.
stuff we love, and we're putting it out there hoping that they love it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on the
Thank you for
show.
inviting me.
Yeah, this has been awesome. We'll share links and photos and stuff. If you have any photos you want us to like edit into the video, we'll put it up like the storefront, you behind the counter kind of thing, some of the signings, and definitely any links. And when something new pops up, let us know and we'll tell
Right.
people and or we'll get you back on here for an interview or something.
And if there's not a bunch in between, I hope there's tons in between, but if
Mm,
there's not a bunch, maybe we should make a couple days after Halloween a regular discussion.
true. That's awesome. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. Del, thanks for being on the show. Have a wonderful
Thank you.
day and we'll see you on here again.
You too. Bye, Joe.